our next episode of Empowering Single Mothers. I'm your co-host, Liza McHale, and I'm here with the beautiful Wendy Bloom in her new space.
Good morning. I'm super grateful for where I'm at this morning.
It's so beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. You were going to say you're new?
My new home that I just purchased and remodeled. And last night was my first night here. And I'm still packed, so haven't showered, haven't done anything to my face. I'm just literally here for you, here for me. And I'm like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah, I gotta acknowledge you for your commitment and just like holding the line on your integrity for being here today. I mean, she's in California, folks. It's like we started talking at 7 a.m. We know what we're talking about today, which is the all-time topic of worthiness. So we started talking and, I got a private tour of our new place. I love it. But the worthiness factor, we really wanted to jump on here today and just talk about it. So we're coming at it from two different perspectives. Wendy's going to go ahead and talk about where she's coming from. And hopefully by the end of it, we would both have shifted to some type of resolution in our next best step. And you, as our lovely audience, will also be able to learn from our conversation, which is like the whole purpose of being here. So thank you again for joining, for to do that. Okay, I'm going to mute myself out so that you can talk about where you're at with the worthiness and how that popped up for you today, girl.
Ooh. So I'm in a position where I worked with a company for about 5 years and absolutely loved the company, had some challenges with I'm going to just call it the size of the company and feeling like I was lost in a sea of people, possibly feeling not worthy, that it, challenged my, my worth. And ultimately it opened an opportunity for another company to present an offer to me that seemed very attractive and gave me the sense that I would be of high priority and be heard and be able to make a difference. And that really spoke to my soul. So I took that opportunity. And as a result, my previous company has basically said, we want you back. And it's a unique situation in that they want me to tell them what it is that I want in order to come back. And so like really having to look at what I feel like, I don't like the word, what am I worth to them? And it's hard to look at that and say, what am I wanting to ask for? What do I think what value do I want to put on myself? And I don't know why that's hard, other than I don't want to short myself. Like I also don't want to ask for too much. It's hard. It's a really challenging position to be in. And everyone listening, it doesn't matter what the position or what the situation is. It could be you're wanting to get a raise in the position that you're at and you don't know how to ask for it, or you're I don't know how to describe it, but it's just, what is it that you think you're worth and how are you going to go about asking for that? And maybe it's not about financial, maybe it's about time, maybe it's about someone meeting you at the table in the way that you deal with a matter. So like, what's your worth? What do you know about your worth? How solid are you in it? And then are you willing to quantify that? And so much has come up. So here I am, all natural, worthy as fuck. Bleep that out. And I get to make myself really just sit with that and decide what does that look like to me, and ask for what I want. So that's tough.
So it's interesting. I don't know if I shared with you. I think I did in the preview of the call. I actually did my NLP, which is like neuro-linguistic.
So proud of you.
Thank you. Really for the benefit, like you, of everyone around, and myself, to learn and grow. And for those of you who don't know, Wendy and I met through a personal professional development company. And so we're all about pushing and working through and just really becoming more aware and labeling. And so proud that we can acknowledge that this is like a worthiness issue. So um, I'm also going through a very similar thing in a completely different area. I'm going to just give a really short version of it. Is um, I'm obviously a single parent. This is what we're talking about, and I have an 11-year-old girl, and I recently started a new friendship with a man, and it's been 5 years since I separated from my ex, and the bulk of the time has really been focused on making sure that my daughter is emotionally intelligent about it and giving her the support that she might need from the trauma of us separating in the manner that we separated, and just like her experience overall. And so I'm sure, like most mothers, you kind of put yourself on the back burner, and you're focusing on your children's well-being. And so now that I know that I'm ready to proceed, I've healed, I've done whatever, and this new friendship has sort of triggered some stuff that I was not expecting the intensity or the context of which it came in. And so my question really to the universe, or my struggle and my prayer, is like, what is the next best step so that I also get what I want, and she still remains on her journey for personal development, and releasing her trauma, and for my friend here to not be impacted by the energy of knowing that this actually exists. And while he might not be the cause, definitely the trigger, and there's human feelings there. And at the core of it, it's like, well, I'm worthy too. Like, what about what I want? And again, I feel like I have put in the time and the effort to establish that. And so with this neurolinguistic programming, it's like, how do we reframe our beliefs? Like, what tools and techniques have we learned to really get clear on what's important to us? So, sister, tell me how you're working through this, and like, let's see if we can get to a net result.
Yeah. It's, I mean, there's so much to look at, and it's like, again, in my case, where it's employment and income related, but there's so much attached to that. There's more than money. There's relationships that I've created over 5 years. There's people that I love and care about, that the company that I want to see thrive and would love to be a part of why they're thriving and share in their success. Those things are, I don't think I can put a dollar on that, right? So how can I put a dollar on what I need to get back to that? So that, I think, is where it is. It's like, am I going to discount myself in order to say that they have worth too? And it's how do you ask someone to give you when you know you're going to get as a result of them giving? It's just so challenging, because again, I want to give freely. I want to be able to just be like, I'll do anything for you. And I'm worth something in what I give. In this particular case, there's dollars involved, right?
Right. I mean, there's definitely pragmatic ways to look at it, right? Dollar for dollar, you match whatever you were offered. However, Now you're given, and it's funny, Wendy, because we are always taught that we are like, just ask.
Yeah.
Just ask. And so what is it that stops you from asking for what you inherently want, right? And it's like, you don't want to ask for too much. Well, what is too much, and who determines what too much is, right? So it's this kind of thing where it's like, well, how do you balance between mothering yourself and another person, right? Like, it's kind of the same thing. You've got these three elements that you're trying to balance. And so what are some of the things that you're doing to get resolution? Because I'm sure in an employment scenario, there is a timeline.
Oh gosh, we're past the timeline.
You're worth it, girl. You're worth it. There's no wait. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's and it's my timeline that is now into play. I think previously it was their timeline. Now it's my timeline. I am not able to sit in this place of uncertainty.
Yes.
Um, you know, being in one place and having someone else telling you they want you. This could be relationship related. Careful, ladies.
Yeah.
Like you're in one relationship and you have someone else making a better offer. Whoa. Um, so I just, and again, in this case, they're like, they don't want to throw something at me. Right. And I don't know if it's because they don't want to insult me or they don't want to offer too much. Right. So I think, and so they put that on me, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's just, it's bringing up a lot for me, and I guess I get to thank them for that. So, the opportunity with one company has so much, so much, I'm going to say, paved path that they've given me all the bricks and said, okay, here's the path for you to be a part of the leadership in this company and do what you want with it. And we're here to help you. Like that's one company. And the other company is, us, what direction we're headed, come be a part of it, And I obviously, with all of my leadership training, I'm very excited to be the one that has the bricks and says, let's do this. So that's hard to be like, no, I don't want to do that, regardless of the dollars that are offered. And then the bigger one that comes up, which I think a lot of people might relate to, is the comfort zone. Wanting to go back to what I know, wanting to go back to where I felt powerful in how I was able to operate, and instead of going to the new and the developing and the challenging, because I don't know what it feels like when something goes wrong. I know all of that at the old place. I know what the fights are going to be like if there's fights, not fights, but I know the battlefield. I don't know it at the new place. So as it relates to relationships, I think a lot of us go back to relationships because we know what they are. We know the goods, we know the bad. We have hope that we can make it better and, have less of the bad. So that's coming into play too. A huge amount of my comfort zone. And we all know, where's your growth outside of that?
Outside of the comfort zone. Yeah. So very similarly, when this sort of came to light, and it's still very fresh, I do feel a little bit of a weight, kind of like with you, you're kind of like, what
Yep.
And so my solace has really been in like really surrendering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have to make a decision. It's sort of like I have to surrender to what's going to happen. You're in a very different place, but they
Yep.
all come from the worthiness. And so for me, the worthiness was I'm worthy to have peace of mind.
Yeah.
Right. So the peace of mind for me comes from anchoring into my routines that I know work, right? Like I went on 3 walks yesterday. I made sure I had the water. I made sure I had sleep. I like stayed away from flour and sugar. And I danced like, I have a hula recital coming up on Sunday. And, like just doing things that fill my soul. It doesn't take away from like the and I'm going to call it conflict that I feel with like, how did I get here? But that question hasn't stopped. However, I'm parking it in a very safe space where, you can call it workshopping, the screen of the mind. Like these are all tools from seminars. My focus though is like my breathing right now, because it can be so overwhelming to know that somebody might be hurt because of something that I've done or the way that I thought I was doing the right thing. And where does my worthiness come in? And so to baseline it just on self-care is such a new thing for me. Trusting that everything else is going to follow. So you and I understand what self-care is. When you think about, and I'm just throwing this out there as a question because we're talking about it live so that people can see how we go through our stuff. Where do you see self-care in this decision that you have to make?
Oh, well, like I'm going to step back into an environment that I know the stress levels that I had, and I don't know the solutions yet, although they're sharing with me that there's going to be solutions. Um, so that would be stepping back into an environment that was incredibly stressful for me. I do have some better insight now that I've left on what I could have done differently. That like that they, I'm not going to say they should on me, but they did. They said, well, you should have done this. And I was like, well, I didn't know. And again, back to worthiness, they were like, you didn't complain enough. You didn't speak up enough. And I'm like, I felt like just saying it when I never complain about anything was enough. So I learned that. I learned that they want me, it's interesting. I have another girlfriend who works at the company, and she's one of their absolute top producers, and she's a squeaky wheel. And there's nothing wrong with her being a squeaky wheel. It's just a different style than mine. She gets more done. It's true. She
Right.
does.
So when you say squeaky wheel, you mean like she will, anytime something goes, everybody knows about it because she's making noise about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Versus somebody who just sort of doesn't complain, does their work. The other person is being more hurt. And you learn that.
Yes.
Because you left, and now the conversation has happened.
Right. And again, it wasn't that my way was not a good way. It's just for the effectiveness that I needed in troublesome situations. I was carrying the burden of all the stress. She doesn't do that. She puts it out there and says, hey, this is stress and I don't want it. Take care of it. And I'm like, okay, this is stressful. Where's the solution? And then I go to the person and say, here's the solution. Help me take care of it. And instead of her saying, hey, you guys are here for me, take care of it. And
Right.
so obviously I've had leadership training that shows me that I can empower others, I can enroll others. And so not using those skills, because for me, that whole trust issue, I trust that I know how to get things done. So, but my way is not always the only way, right? So right. Again, watching her succeed, I can learn from her. I can choose to be different. I also want to stay in alignment with myself, which is I'm not a person that wants to be I don't want to come off as a complainer, right? Because that's not attractive to me. So I like to be a solution oriented. So here's my issue. This is the things that I've done to attempt to solve it on my own. Now I need your help, right? And so if they have a complainer that comes to them, and then they have me that comes to them, and we're coming to them, with those two energies, she's the one who gets the attention because she needs to be made happy, and I already appear happy.
It's crazy because it's very similar to parenting, right? The kid that acts up generally gets the most attention, and the one that actually really needs it,
right,
powers, right? So
totally, yes.
It's amazing because I'm hearing you and I'm like, wow, like I also, complaining is not necessarily attractive to me. I'm very solution driven, and to the point where sometimes I seem like disconnected because I'm just constantly solutioning.
Yep.
What stuck out for me is that you carry the stress.
Yeah.
So where does that come from?
Right. And that's because I don't want to create stress for anyone else. That's where. So
that's my worthiness issue too, right? Because I don't want her to be stressed. I don't want him to be stressed, and I don't want to be stressed. So I will share that over the last 24 to 48 hours, my lesson was for them not to be stressed, I have to not be stressed. Or for me to support them in not being stressed and show up and add value. And no matter which way it lands, that we're all happy and better for it.
Yep.
I have to be in the best mind state. So it's taking everything in me to remain calm, do whatever, because I do feel that sense of responsibility of how have I been parenting that created this. And here's this other human being that has done nothing except for show up and be kind and supportive, that is now being, I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So my question to you is like, in the realm of self-care, if we agree that this is where the solution is going to be, which decision is going to optimize your ability to do self-care?
Right. And that's where it's, in this particular case, it's super challenging because of that comfort zone thing. Because one, where going back to my comfort zone seems like it will be less stressful.
Yeah.
It does. It really does. It seems like I would be able to do more self-care. I also may do less self-care because it's what I already know and I'll do my old habits.
Right.
Whereas the new company, it's fresh, it's new. I can choose to operate differently, and it won't feel different because the environment's different to begin with, right? Yeah. So again, it's an ultimate challenge because you don't know the new one, and what you know about the old one is going to trigger previous habits that you may not want to be doing.
Yeah. So in the surrender of the now, it is such an uncomfortable place. And so, when my daughter says she's not comfortable and intuition, I'm all about the awareness. Okay, great. What's the label? So intuition on its own, it works in some scenarios, right? And then in others, it's like at some point you're like, my intuition told me not to walk down that road.
Yeah.
But to just blanket it as intuition, it stops the whole like awareness, labeling, experiencing. And so for me, my universal ask was that we have the opportunity to continue to experience this so that we can release it. Yep. So again, not to influence, continuing to experience it so that you can release it and going back to the old place. However, just the whole, like, what are you experiencing? Are you ready to let it go? And then can you make a decision based on now as opposed to the past and the future? It is such, I tell you, if we had not met and if we had not done the work that we had done, I'm very sure that we would be having I don't even know we'd be having this discussion, right?
No, for sure not. There's no way.
There's no way, right? So even in the emotional uncertainty and even though we know we're sure about certain things, the sense of peace of mind, even though there's glimpses of it sometimes, right? I really do feel like we're contributing by sharing, right? And so yeah. What's been coming up for you? Because I know we've got to like maybe go in about 5 minutes. Are you any closer to a resolution, or are you feeling like more?
As I say certain things, I'm like, well, of course I want to be a part of something that's bigger than me. And if I have one place that's saying, hey, we want you to be that too, and I have another place that says, just come back home. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because when you say that, when you made that comment about like, if you're in a relationship and somebody makes a better offer, it's crazy because in that area of relationships, I'm a loyalist through and through. I'm like, are you crazy? I'm involved over here.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not how I am. However, when it comes to work and like a role or like something that is not intimate or relational in that sense, I'm going to look at the offer. I mean, where can you add value? And the compensation might be a part of it. But yeah, that for me is not transferable. I'm just not. And I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying for me, I just know the way that I operate is not that way. And maybe that will change over time. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't. Yeah. So I guess my question is, because I was going to say, what would I teach my daughter?
Right.
So what would you do? You have 3 children. What would you do if they were presented with the same thing? Like, what's the golden nugget that you would share with them to get to a decision?
Yeah. Well, my dad, he gave me some advice, and of course his is primarily financial. He's just like, Wendy, do what's going to be best financially for you. right? And so that weighs heavy on me because of all of my upbringing. Oh, I guess I could bring that up. So one of the things from my childhood related to money is my dad was the successful one. My mom was relatively not, she didn't really work when she was married to my dad. So when they split, my mom wasn't, wasn't working. And then she had to kind of figure out her life. When she left me just before I was 11 years old, um, every week she would send me a card and she would say, when I have enough money, you can come live with me. So there is a lot of how I've operated in my life that has to do with you have to make enough money so that you can have your children. And so money has never been my most comfortable thing. So I think that element of this really is where the discomfort comes from, is the financial, because the emotional, um, if it wasn't the money, then this would probably be pretty easy for me,
Yeah. So what would it be if it wasn't the money?
right? Um, Again, I think I just keep coming back to I can see where I can show up and make a huge difference at the new company. And at the old company, I would just be staying in my role. So there's my answer,
Have
right?
it. Yeah. It's like, and right on the money too. Right on
Yeah,
the money. Okay, I love you.
I love you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any men on here, this is what it's about, and this is why we do it's so far deep in there in the worthiness, right? And so
Yep.
surrendering to it, like I'm so grateful that you're clear and just get the number. Like, I mean, if it's a financial thing, get the number. And the great thing about not burning bridges,
Hmm.
you can always go back to the same bridge and walk
Right.
and just see what it looks like, right?
Yep.
And so I'm going to rest my faith on that. And I'm going to thank you for just being willing to be vulnerable, like we always are every week, and invite our audience to comment and like really get clear about what it is that they got out of this. And I'm going to wish you well in your new home, send you love on your new decision. And may this come back to you 700 times, just because this has been like, of all the ones that we've done, I gotta say this is like one of my favorites, and right in
Yep.
time for the holidays. And so join us again next week. Again, my name is Lisa McHale from Empowering Single Mothers, and this is my beautiful, decisive co-host, Wendy.
Ah, thanks, guys. Have a great day.